Before we talk about structure, we have to talk about valuations and how private equity actually values businesses. So we've already heard on this presentation a few times EBITDA. You may have heard that out in the real world when you're talking about private equity. All EBITDA is, it's an acronym, stands for earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. It is a metric of profitability. And that metric of profitability of your business is what private equity will use to value your business. They will apply a multiple. Depending on the type of business, the industry you're in, those multiples can vary from 2s to 3s up to 5s and 10s even. But for this example, we're going to say it's a $2 million business, and the multiple that was applied to that EBITDA was 6, giving us a $12 million valuation on this business. The first part of the deal structure, and this structure is pretty normal, 90+% of deals are structured similarly to this. That the first portion of that is cash. So the $8 million of cash, this is the money that hits your bank account on the day of close. I can promise you will sit there with your phone in your hand, hitting refresh multiple times until you see these dollars hit the bank account. This money is yours. They can't take it back unless you have committed fraud in the marketing of your business. You'll be very excited when it hits your bank account. You'll high five. You'll probably go to dinner that night, and 24 to 48 hours later, that high kind of subsides, and then you realize you're going to have to pay some taxes on that. And I know Kevin and his team have got some strategies for that, so stick around for that later. Rollover equity is the next component. Mike's already hit on that. I won't belabor the point other than to say again, not all equity is created equal. So it's good to pick the right partner. The last part of a deal can be a growth earnout. I think growth earnouts get a really bad rap from sellers, because they think, listen, if this is the value of my business, why do I quote unquote have to earn it out? And we really feel that it is a good tool to align buyers and sellers. And the analogy that I use with our clients is this: you as a business owner have a viable business. That's a chicken, right? This is my analogy as a simple country boy. And so you also have opportunities in the future. Those are eggs. The buyers, the private equity buyers, they're really in the chicken business, right? They want viable businesses. They're not really keen on paying for potential opportunity in the future. What a growth earnout does is it allows you all to come together and to bridge the gap between you as a seller and your expectations of valuation and the buyer's ability and willingness to pay for your business. And what they will do is, as those opportunities come to fruition, i.e. the eggs hatch and turn into chicks, the private equity will pay you for that chick. And again, this is a really great way to align you and the buyer together. The other thing that I tell our clients is that if you pick the right partner, they're going to take your egg, your opportunity, they're going to put it in a really fancy incubator, which is going to have their marketing machine, it's going to have their recruiting machine, it's going to have their ability to train your team up, and the opportunity for those eggs to hatch is going to increase. I promise you, when a growth earnout is in place, the buyer wants to pay you those dollars, because all that is doing is showing that your business is growing and the asset that they bought is what they thought it was and it's performing well. So that is structure in a nutshell.
Well said. With that, timing also matters, just like any investment. And we alluded to it in the video earlier. There's more upside when you join earlier, but more risk. And the inverse is true later on in a roll-up or consolidation strategy. And so what we've done here is shown, the impact of joining early versus late. And the next slide we'll talk about being right versus being late better than being wrong. But in this example, we're going to walk you through what it could look like to be the 5th acquisition at a platform versus the 20th. And so building on the 5th acquisition, at this point, you're very early stages. The platform probably has a vision as to what they want to be, but they're still building the plane while flying it, meaning they don't have the full executive team built out. They have some pieces, they might have had some turnover, they're still trying to figure it out. They don't have a proven recruiting engine. They don't have a proven marketing engine, but they have a good PE sponsor. You believe in the mission of what they're trying to accomplish, and you believe together you can go further than alone. And so you partner early. And now in that scenario, when you partner, you're taking a $7 million offer, 1.4 million of that's rollover equity. At the time, the share price is $4. So you have 350,000 shares in this company. Now we're going to rewind to the 20th acquisition, okay? When this group joins, they probably have a fully built out executive team. They've proven they can recruit. Their marketing systems are working. they can retain talent, they have growth trajectory for their employees, they have diversified their risk across now 20 businesses versus before 5. And as such, the stock price has increased. So even if you take the same offer, both offered $7 million, both took 1.4 million in rollover equity. The 20th acquisition, the share price is $7.50 a share. They're getting 186,000 shares. You fast forward both of these a few years at recap, at sale, when your rollover equity becomes tangible and liquidated. The 5th acquisition is going to realize a 2.8x return, assuming they sell at $11 per share, which is 3.85 million. Much more upside, right? Because they took the risk, they joined earlier, they were part of the growth journey. The 20th acquisition, who joined closer to recap later on in the process at a less risky part of the growth journey, they're going to realize still a positive return, right? But at a lower level, 2.05 million or 1.5x return. Depending on the timeline between when they joined and recap, that could be great by all means. But it just goes to show there is value in joining earlier versus later if the timing is right for you. Like I said, being late is better than being wrong. And unfortunately, you'll see this in industries where there's a lot of consolidation happening. And mathematically, it makes sense, right? If you have 70 groups all with the same thesis, not all 70 are going to work out. And so what this example shows is platform A and platform B, let's assume they start at the same point in the same industry with the same goals. Different mission, different culture, different PE sponsors. Platform A grows strategically. They acquire the right companies with the right cultures and the right people, and they don't have to overpay to win these deals. And they're operating the budget. Now, when I say operating the budget, this is important both in beating and missing budget equally. Companies value, if you say I'm going to grow organically 4%, growing organically plus or minus 0.5%, not growing 4% more than you planned or 10% more than you planned, because that proves it's not predictable. That company is going to be able to recap to the next PE sponsor almost at their will, because they've proven all the things that make them valuable. They're disciplined, their culture's great, the teams like them, they can retain talent, and that's going to be a great return and an exit for its investors. Platform B wants to move too quickly. They don't have the structure in place to support it. They're overpaying to win deals. They're acquiring poor cultures because they do not have a good diligence process. And ultimately what that leads to is their assets start to struggle. They're losing talent. They're facing issues with their debt covenants. And they're either going to be forced to shut down businesses, but ultimately they're going to be stuck digging out of a hole, unable to sell or recap to generate value for their investors. And if they do, it's going to be at a heavy discount because people aren't valuing what they've built. In this world, it's super important to understand the difference between building an operating company versus stacking together EBITDA and hoping to do it fast enough to get a return before you actually have to operate.